of Israelis by not allowing to renew a war. No matter what is now the criticism against him, his contribution for peace, as far as I am concerned, will never be forgotten.
Well, still much more to come on the programme, including accident or an act of sabotage. Egyptian authorities try to figure out what caused this explosion on a key gas pipeline.
Hello again. Well, in Sri Lanka, it's still raining very, very heavily. We have had more reports of yet more flooding in the past couple of days, and you can see why. This is the storm system that's given us our torrential downpours, and it's going nowhere in a great hurry either. So over the next few days, then, it's going to stay very, very wet, particularly for the central and eastern parts. Further north, and for most of us across India, it's fine and dry and actually pretty warm at the moment, 29 there in New Delhi for Sunday. But more in the way of cloud and rain just rolling its way across the northern parts of Pakistan and into the northern parts of India, and that will also be giving us a fair amount of snow at times too. Now here in Doha, the winds are back with us as we head through the next few days, so a blustery day, dusty at times, and it won't be that warm either. A top temperature in Doha of 22, and then on Sunday night I think we'll drop all the way down to around 14. For the southern parts of Africa, here it's very unsettled, as it has been over the past couple of days. Yet more wet weather still on the cards for most of us as we head through Sunday. It does look like Cape Town should get away with a dry day there, and it will be pretty warm as well, if not hot, all the way up at 33 degrees. Now for Brazil, it's in the northeast where we've seen the heaviest and most persistent rains recently, but also we're now seeing some bright white clouds there across Peru. More heavy downpours are still to come here as we head through the day on Sunday.
Welcome back. Let's go straight to the main developments in Egypt. President Mubarak's son Gamal and the rest of the top brass of Egypt's ruling National Democratic Party have resigned. The US says its priority is for a peaceful and orderly transition of power. The man Obama sent to meet Mubarak said his leadership was crucial during the changes, but the White House says Frank Wisner was speaking for himself. Meanwhile, opposition figure Mohammed al-Baradei has criticised US policy. He said it appears the Americans are siding with whoever is the most powerful on a particular day, rather than taking a principled position. While staying with Egypt, further problems are being caused by an explosion at a gas terminal in the Sinai Peninsula. Jordanian power plants are now running on oil and diesel fuel following the suspension of gas supplies to Egypt. It is connected to a political crisis, or is it? The blast has been blamed on a gas leak, but not all Jordanians are convinced. Nisreen El-Shamela has the story from Amman.
Flames roar hundreds of feet into the sky. An Egyptian gas terminal ablaze. This meant an immediate suspension of gas supplies to neighboring Jordan and Israel. The pipeline in flames supplies gas that is used to generate 80% of Jordan's electricity needs. A real predicament for a resource-poor country. Earlier reports that this was an act of sabotage were then countered by Egyptian officials who claimed the explosion was caused by a gas leak. That's not very convincing here.
I wouldn't be surprised that people who are connected to the Egyptian regime, ordered by the Egyptian regime, were behind this explosion in order to shift the attention from Tahrir Square to the explosion that took place in Sinai.
For now, there is no clear evidence either way, but following weeks of protests demanding economic reforms, pressure mounts on the government to bear the brunt of possible price hikes to avoid further unrest. The suspension of Egyptian gas supplies to Jordan is going to cost the country over $4 million per day. It also comes at a time when the Jordanian government is struggling to ease economic hardships by subsidizing some fuel derivatives. Jordan started importing gas from Egypt 8 years ago. The relationship with President Hosni Mubarak's regime is viewed as a strategic asset. And though officials here have kept quiet, it is believed they privately would rather see Mubarak stay than stand down. Nasreen Al-Shamaili, Al Jazeera, Amman.
Let's go to Tunisia now, and at least 4 people were killed when a police chief fired at protesters outside a police station in northern Tunisia. State media says the clashes in the town of Claf were sparked after a policeman allegedly slapped a woman who'd come to file a complaint. The police chief has been arrested. The violence was the most serious since demonstrations that forced the overthrow of the government last month. More than 3 weeks on from the fall of President Zine El Abidine Ben Ali, no leading opposition politician or party has emerged to push for key demands. Many opposition figures say they're not being included in the political process, despite assurances from the interim government. Some even say they feel threatened. Nazneen Mashiri has more.
It was a frightening moment for opposition leader Monsef Marzouki as he made his way through the streets of the capital. This footage given to Al Jazeera shows a former exile set upon by what he says are plain-clothes secret police. He told me Ben Ali's security forces are still operating here freely.
We got rid of the dictator, but the dictatorship is still there. I mean, the secret police is still there. The party of the dictatorship is still there.
Praying for peaceful times. Rashid Ghannouchi was also exiled under Ben Ali, with many members of his Islamic Ennahda movement imprisoned or tortured. He says the new government isn't legitimate. His party and many other opposition groups have been shut out of the political process.
The people must protect their revolution if they value the achievement of toppling the dictator. The blood of the martyrs is in their hands, and not all their goals have been achieved. The street must be ready. The genuine opposition must come together to build on a common vision.
This is the man who could unite the opposition. Najib Chebi lived through Ben Ali's regime. Just a month ago, addressing his supporters like this would have been impossible. Now he has a real chance of becoming Tunisia's next president.
Don't have the right to fail. You know, Tunisia is now mature to establish a democratic regime and to begin real and just development.
The headquarters of the former ruling party, the RCD, has now been dismantled. Big questions still remain over whether there has been a break with the past. A promised investigation into corruption and human rights abuses has been criticised as slow and inefficient, and nobody knows when there's going to be a free and fair election. The opposition says it wants more time to prepare for those elections. Tunisia is now in uncharted territory. Building a new democratic nation is not going to be easy. Nazneen Mashiri, Al Jazeera, Tunis.
Now let's catch up with some of the rest of the news from around the world with Kimberly in our Washington Broadcast Centre. Kimberly.
Sahil, thank you. Thailand and Cambodia have agreed to a second ceasefire in as many days after renewed fighting in a disputed border region. Cambodian soldiers and Thai forces exchanged gunfire near a contested 900-year-old temple. One Thai soldier died in that exchange. 3 other soldiers and a civilian were killed in the violence on Friday. Well, days of torrential rains and widespread flooding have killed at least 5 people in Sri Lanka. Hundreds of thousands of others have seen their lives disrupted. As Manel Fernandez reports, the country's Disaster Management Center is struggling to cope with the scale of the damage.
The waters raged once again, sweeping everything in their path. Worst hit was the North Central province. Swollen irrigation tanks breaching their banks. One reported to have unleashed around 55,000 cubic acres of water. Many villagers were cut off by the floodwater, boats their only hope. Over 1 million people have been affected, and more than 230,000 have been forced to leave their homes for temporary shelters. In the Central Highlands, authorities issued a landslide alert and declared a state of emergency in some areas.
Our kitchen was buried by a landslide at the back of the house.
It wasn't just people facing hardships. This baby elephant was among the wildlife caught by rising waters. The military and police are helping with the rescue and relief efforts. But despite the devastation, there were some moments of hope. This baby born on a helicopter as her mother was flown to safety. In Colombo, charities are trying to gather food and clothing to send to victims. But they face a major problem delivering this aid, as many roads are impassable.
Emergency supplies and food stocks are being loaded up behind me to be taken to the hundreds of thousands of people affected by this latest round of flooding.